Alrighty, so methods. Okay, so let's go ahead and write out a simple application, console class program, um, static void main, blah, blah, blah. Okay, so in programming, you typically do repetitive things quite often. And what has been learned over the decades and decades and decades of programming languages existing is that you do repetitive things so often that they have introduced language constructs specifically for doing things that you might want to do over and over again. So what do I mean by that? Well, let's start off with a really simple example. Let's say I have a, um, let's say I want to present a user with the list or numbers from 1 to
Oh,
10,
good
and I want to,
heavens, man! Why you
oh,
so? Look at it in the real world, ladies and gentlemen. We break things down into tasks that we know how to do. Here's a very important task to me, and that is making myself a cup of coffee. That's critically important. It's so important that everyone that comes and stays with me here at the Buzz Cave, they are taught how to make a cup of coffee because they must drink coffee with me if they're going to stay up all night. Now, we all know coffee is important. It's a task we must understand, and it's a task that does not require a lot of functionality in order to pull off. But as Nelson was just explaining a second ago, it is something that it's going to be repetitive, meaning, uh, well, I've had like 5 or 6 cups of coffee already today, and now my lovely Beaver Buzz energy drink. So I'm feeling pretty good for only having 2 hours of sleep. But the key thing is, if I wanted a cup of coffee, I could tell somebody here that knows the method of making a cup of coffee. I could say, hey, Meta, go get me a cup of coffee. And she's going to go into her own little world, basically. She's going to get up, she's going to walk into the kitchen, she's going to, fire up the coffee maker, make sure there's water in it, and blah, blah, blah. Next thing you know, there's a cup of coffee. See, I don't care. All I know is I called upon Meta to make me a cup of coffee. And I get a result back. I get a nice hot cup of coffee. So that is an analogy, a way of looking at what a method is, kind of in the real world, and it's a way of taking our code and breaking it up into smaller chunks that are handling a very specific task, and that's very important to understand because beginners in any programming language, writing functions or methods, will often write very long ones that will do multiple things. And what we want to do when we construct our methods is we want them to be as simplistic and handling a single task as possible. That's why that last homework assignment was driving Nelson crazy because it could have easily been broken up into a few methods to make the program a lot easier to read and understand and troubleshoot when there are problems.